Algebra Word Problems number 14C. Write solve equations with parentheses. This is comparing amounts. Parentheses and brackets are commonly used in algebraic equations, and they tell us which part of the equation to do first. We do the parentheses, what's in the parentheses first, right? They tell us to multiply the number next to them by the term, the number, the coefficient, the variables that are inside of them. And we remove the parentheses by distributing the multiplication and opening the equation up. So if we have 3x plus 4, that tells us that we have 3x plus 3 times 4 is 12. See? It's 3 times the x plus 3 times the 4. So we get 3x plus 12. All right? And if the parentheses have a negative sign in front of them, then we distribute that negative to each one inside of there also. And if it's just a negative sign like this, we know there's an invisible 1 there. Just like in front of the variable, there's an invisible 1 if you just see a negative sign in front of a parentheses. You have to imagine there's this little invisible 1 there, and we're going to distribute the negative sign to the x, and then we distribute the negative sign to the y. See? So keep your eyes open and keep a lookout for variables that can be combined, and remember, whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other to keep our balance. Okay? So here's our problem. Bob, Dave, and Joe share an apartment. Dave pays $25 less rent than Bob because his room is smaller. Joe pays twice as much rent as Dave because his room has a private bathroom. If the total rent is $1,425, how much rent does each person pay? So we're going to let B be Bob, okay? He's going to be our variable. So we think 3 guys are sharing an apartment, and it totals $1,425. So we know this guy plus this guy plus this guy is going to total the $1,425. So we think, all right, it said Dave pays $25 less than Bob. Well, if Dave pays $25 less than Bob, Bob is paying more, isn't he? And if we took that $25 away from Bob, Dave and Bob would have the same rent. The only thing that's keeping Dave and Bob from having the same rent is that $25 that Dave doesn't have to pay and Bob does. See? Otherwise, the rent would be the same. So it's very easy for us to say that if we take Bob and subtract the $25, Bob will equal Dave, won't he? So now we have B minus 25 equals Dave. All right? Because remember, B equals Bob. All right, so now let's try the next one. Joe pays twice as much as Dave. All right, well, we've already figured out that B minus 25 is Dave. So if Joe pays twice as much as Dave, he's 2 times B minus 25, isn't he? So now we can write our equation. That wasn't that bad, was it? So we have Bob, he's B all by himself, and then Dave, the B minus 25, and then Joe, the 2 times B minus 25. And all of this together is going to equal the 1425. So let's go figure it out. All right, so here's our equation. We need to multiply to remove the parentheses. So we need to open this up, and we need to open this up. We can't just do what's in the parentheses because we don't know what B is. We don't know what B minus 25 is, so we can't just do B minus 25. If it said 50 minus 25, yes, we could do it. But because there's a variable there and there's a number on the outside, what we're going to do is we're going to open it up. So we've got 2 times B gives us the 2B, and then we drop our subtraction sign down, and 2 times 25 is 50. All right, so now this one's done, okay? So now we did this parentheses. And then this one is B plus the B minus 25. We just open it up. We don't have to distribute it because it's not being multiplied. See, it's B plus that. This was 2 times that. So because this is a plus in between here in the parentheses, we're just going to remove the parentheses. Now what we need to do is we need to combine all the like terms. We need to add all these B's together. We got B, which is 1B, right? Because we know that there's an invisible B, there's an invisible 1 in front of each one of these variables that don't have a coefficient. Remember a coefficient? It's the number in front of a variable. So if it doesn't have a coefficient, we know it's got an invisible 1, okay? Well, that has a 2 in front of it, so we don't have to worry about the invisible 1. That's got a 2. Now we need to add these b's together. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. So we got 4b, and now we've got to worry about the actual numbers, okay? So we've got this 25 minus 50, so that gives us minus 75. So now we've got 4b minus 75 equals 1,425. Now this looks like a problem we're used to seeing, doesn't it? This one had so many b's in it, didn't it? Okay, so now, that's because we're getting into harder and harder problems as we go along. So now we know that we need to add 75 to each side to create 0 pairs, so a 0 pair right here, so that we can isolate this b next to the 4 to one side of the equal sign. This is our first step to do that, all right? So we're going to add 75. That's going to become a 0 pair, and it's gone. We discard it. We add 75 to this side to keep our balance, and we end up with 1,500. Now this drops down, and we got 4b and 1,500. So because 4b means 4 times b, that's multiplication. To do the inverse, to get rid of this 4, we need to divide. So we divide each side by the 4 next to the b. Then the b will be by himself, won't he? Divide by 4, divide by 4. This ends up dropping off because it becomes what? An invisible 1 in front of the b that we don't have to write. And then on this side, 1,500 divided by 4 is 375. So we know b is 375, and b stands for Bob. So Bob is 375, okay? Well, if Dave is Bob minus 25, then Dave must be 25 less than this, or 350. And Joe is 2 times Dave, so if Dave is 350, Joe must be 2 times 350. Joe's 700. And now we know how much rent each one is paying. I don't know why Joe is paying that much for having a private bathroom, but maybe his room is huge, huh? All right, so that's how we distributed the numbers through multiplication, all right, and opened them up. You saw how we wrote it. You saw how we assigned each term inside of parentheses to each person that was paying rent, okay? So just remember, when you see things like sum of, product of, quotient of, difference of, total of, or if they're consecutive numbers, which we're going to be doing coming up, then that means there's going to be parentheses, all right? We're going to talk about brackets next, and I hope to see you there. Bye.